Ireland, a small island nation with a rich history and culture, has long been marked by a deep-seated division. This division stems from the complex relationship between Ireland and Great Britain. In the early 20th century, Ireland gained independence, but the partition in 1921 left a lasting legacy. 6 counties in the northeast remained part of the United Kingdom as Northern Ireland. This partition sowed the seeds of the conflict known as the Troubles. The Troubles were fueled by national identity, religious affiliation, and political aspirations. The Troubles erupted in the late 1960s. Violence between Unionists and Nationalists defined the conflict. Unionist paramilitary groups sought to maintain Northern Ireland's union with Britain.
Nationalist paramilitary groups fought to end British rule and create a united Ireland. The violence included bombings, shootings, and assassinations. Civilians were often caught in the crossfire.
The British Army and Royal Ulster Constabulary were heavily involved. The Troubles left a legacy of fear, trauma, and division. The conflict claimed over 3,500 lives. The path to peace in Northern Ireland was long and arduous, marked by setbacks and breakthroughs. From the early days of the conflict, there were those who sought a peaceful resolution.
Civil rights activists campaigned for equality and an end to discrimination. Politicians engaged in dialogue, seeking common ground amidst the violence. However, progress was often hampered by mistrust, entrenched positions, and the persistence of violence.
Paramilitary groups continued to carry out attacks, while political leaders struggled to find a solution that would satisfy both unionist and nationalist aspirations. Despite the challenges, the desire for peace never waned. International actors, including the United States and the European Union, played a role in encouraging dialogue and supporting peace initiatives. The tireless efforts of community leaders, church groups, and ordinary citizens also contributed to creating an environment where peace could eventually take hold. The Good Friday Agreement, signed on April 10, 1998, marked a watershed moment in the history of Northern Ireland. This historic agreement, endorsed by the governments of the UK, Ireland, and the political parties in Northern Ireland, offered a comprehensive framework for peace and reconciliation. The agreement addressed key issues at the heart of the conflict, including
the principle of consent. This recognized that Northern Ireland's constitutional status could only be changed with the consent of a majority of its people. Power sharing. The agreement established a power-sharing government in Northern Ireland, ensuring that both Unionists and Nationalists had a voice in decision-making. Decommissioning of arms paramilitary groups were required to decommission their weapons, a process that proved both complex and controversial. Human rights. The agreement included provisions to protect the human rights of all citizens in Northern Ireland.
The Good Friday Agreement was a remarkable achievement, lauded internationally as a model for conflict resolution. It offered hope for a future free from violence, where differences would be resolved through dialogue and compromise. Section 5. The Price of Peace. Challenges to reconciliation. While the Good Friday Agreement brought an end to the large-scale violence that had plagued Northern Ireland for decades, the path to lasting peace and reconciliation has been far from smooth. The legacy of the Troubles continues to cast a long shadow over the region. One of the most significant challenges has been dealing with the past. The pain and trauma of the conflict run deep, and many victims and their families still seek truth and justice for the atrocities they endured. The issue of how to address the legacy of the Troubles, including dealing with the past, remains a source of tension and debate. Another challenge has been the persistence of sectarianism and division within Northern Irish society. Despite the progress made in bridging the divide between communities, sectarian tensions continue to simmer beneath the surface, occasionally erupting in violence. The legacy of distrust and division continues to pose a challenge to building a truly shared future. Section 6. Bloody Sunday, a stain on history. Bloody Sunday, January 30th, 1972, stands as one of the darkest days in the history of the Troubles. On that day, British soldiers shot and killed 14 unarmed civil rights marchers in Derry, Northern Ireland. The march, organised to protest internment without trial, turned into a massacre when soldiers opened fire on the crowd. The Bloody Sunday killings sent shockwaves through Ireland and beyond, sparking international outrage and deepening the crisis in Northern Ireland. The British government's initial response, which sought to justify the soldiers' actions, further inflamed tensions.
For decades, the families of the victims campaigned tirelessly for truth and justice. A lengthy inquiry, known as the Savile Inquiry, concluded in 2010 that the killings were unjustified and unprovoked. The British Prime Minister at the time, David Cameron, issued a formal apology for the massacre, describing it as unjustified and unjustifiable.
Section 7. The Hunger Strikes, Sacrifice and Defiance. The 1981 Irish hunger strike was a pivotal and tragic event in the history of the Troubles. It began when Bobby Sands, a member of the Provisional IRA, refused food in protest against the British government's refusal to grant special category status to paramilitary prisoners.
9 other prisoners joined the hunger strike, demanding to be treated as political prisoners rather than criminals. Their demands included the right to wear their own clothes, the right to refuse prison work, the right to free association with other prisoners, and the right to receive letters, visits, and parcels.
The hunger strike garnered international attention and sparked widespread protests and demonstrations. However, the British government, led by Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, refused to concede to the prisoners' demands. The hunger strike lasted for 73 days, ending with the death of 10 prisoners, including Bobby Sands, who had been elected to the British Parliament during the strike. The hunger strikers' sacrifice had a profound impact on Irish republicanism and further fueled the conflict. Section 8. The International Dimension, Peacemakers and Mediators. The Troubles in Northern Ireland were not simply an internal conflict, they had a significant international dimension. External actors played a crucial role in both fueling the conflict and ultimately helping to bring about peace. The United States, with its large Irish-American population, had a long-standing interest in Irish affairs. While some Irish-American groups provided financial and moral support to Republican paramilitaries, the US government played a more constructive role, particularly during the peace process. The European Union also played a significant role in supporting the peace process. The EU provided funding for peace and reconciliation projects and offered a framework for cross-border cooperation between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. International figures, such as former US Senator George Mitchell and former Finnish President Martti Ahtisaari, played crucial roles as mediators and facilitators during the peace negotiations. Their impartiality and diplomatic skills were instrumental in helping the parties to reach agreement. Section 9. The Legacy of the Troubles, Scars and Shadows. The Troubles have left an indelible mark on Northern Ireland, shaping its social, political and cultural landscape. The conflict's legacy is complex and multifaceted, encompassing both the trauma of the past and the hope for a better future. One of the most visible legacies of the Troubles is the physical division that still exists in many parts of Northern Ireland. Peace walls, erected to separate Catholic and Protestant communities, continue to stand as a stark reminder of the sectarian tensions that fueled the conflict. The psychological scars of the Troubles run deep. Many people in Northern Ireland continue to live with the trauma of violence, loss and division. Dealing with the past, addressing past injustices and promoting reconciliation remain ongoing challenges. Despite the challenges, there is also a sense of hope and resilience in Northern Ireland. The Good Friday Agreement provided a framework for peace, and while the peace process has faced its share of obstacles, it has endured. Section 10. A Fragile Peace, Navigating the Future. More than 2 decades after the Good Friday Agreement, Northern Ireland is at a crossroads. The peace process ended large-scale violence but remains fragile. The political landscape is deeply divided along sectarian lines. The DUP and Sinn Féin often mistrust each other. Brexit adds complexity, raising concerns about a hard border. This could undermine the Good Friday Agreement and reignite tensions. Despite challenges, there's hope and determination for a better future. Cross-community initiatives promote reconciliation and understanding. The future remains uncertain, but lasting peace requires dialogue and compromise.